So my name is Dr. John Schellenberg. I'm also a doctor of chiropractic. I have a doctor of divinity. I have a level 2 certified neuro-emotional technique practitioner, a certified body talk practitioner, a certified magnetic mind coach, and probably some stuff I've already forgotten about. And I'm married. My wife is Barb, and together we have two amazing daughters, Sadie and Sophia. And we live here in North Florida, Northeast Florida, Ponte Vedra Beach. If anyone knows anything about golf, the TPC Sawgrass, and the headquarters for the PGA is right here in our backyard. So this is kind of where we live. So I want to share some incredible stuff with you guys, today in this time together. And there's really four core visualizations that we work with, and it's my wish for each and every one of us to live by. And here they are in no specific order, but I teach these and I do my very best to live them every single day. Number one, I am the primary creator of my life. Number two, I live a life that I love. Number three, I live my true nature and purpose. And four, I live at a very high level of health and vitality. And I'm going to tell you, it's not always been that way. And I'm not going to get into a long, drawn out story about me, but I will tell you that I've gone through some stuff in my life. I've gone through a painful divorce. I've endured much heartache, 4 different surgeries, a death threat, personal bankruptcy, suspension from school. 5 times I've come within inches of losing my life. And yes, at one time I was nearly 50 pounds overweight, and I mean miserable. You know what? That was the past. And I learned a long time ago that the past can be over as soon as we choose. And so think of it this way. You right now are the youngest you're ever going to be for the rest of your life. Well, what do you want to create? So the truth is, I have a genuine interest in the well-being of other people, really. And I absolutely love meaningful conversations and hearing people share their life stories. And I also truly enjoy helping people learn to create exactly what it is they love for their life. I have had many brilliant teachers. They say we all stand on the shoulders of giants, and that is so true, And I've stumbled across some incredible insights over the decades I've been in practice. And I found a unique way to relate these discoveries to every aspect of life, but especially to health and vitality, and in particular to creating forever weight loss. Let's go ahead and get into this. I'm going to start with some metaphors because I love metaphors. They have the power to illustrate and simplify some really complicated topics. So I'm going to start with a couple here. I'm going to show my age. So first of all, I'm way older than I think I look, even though my daughter thinks I'm acting like, most of the time I act like an 8-year-old. But literally, I am so old that my elementary school got its first and only computer when I was in 5th grade. It was, I'll still remember, it was a Radio Shack TRS-80. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was like it was a huge beast of a computer. I was in 5th grade, and we had to sign up to be able to go on to play like this little crazy dot matrix game, after school. And the list was forever long. I mean, we were just fascinated by these computers. But anyways, I learned to type when I was in high school. I learned to type on one of those old Pecker typewriters. You put the paper in, and then at the end of the line, you hit the thing and it goes around. And so when you made a mistake on those, like, you're done, right? You had to rip out the paper, crumple it up, throw it out, and start all over again. And then I remember my dad, he worked for this actually retirement home, and he had this electric, I don't know if it was electric or electronic typewriter. But dude, this thing was awesome because it had this erase button. And I remember playing with it, and I would hit it and it would back up and put like some whiteout over your mistake. And I mean, that was really cool. But then of course we got into word processors, right? And those things can, backspace and delete and cut and paste. And that was all fine, right? Until you're 3 hours into a project or an essay, and the cat walks across the keyboard and deletes the whole thing, right? And boom, you're starting right over from scratch. And I think that must have happened a lot of time to computer programmers. These guys that live in dark rooms and write code for hours and hours and hours, because one brilliant person, I don't know who it was, invented autosave, which automatically saves your progress as you go. And of course, we enjoy that now. And even if the power goes out, this auto recover feature can bring you right back to where you left off. And that's brilliant. So this concept, the metaphor of autosave, is something that we're going to talk about later. And another way, any video gamers here, like I don't really play a lot of video games, but the ones I have played, they're structured in such a way that, after you've achieved a certain goal, you kind of level up, right? Which means you get to start over at the beginning of that level, but you don't have to go all the way to the beginning like you did before after you lost your 3 hours of work on your essay. So you don't have to like start over at the beginning. You start over at the beginning of this level. So it auto saves or level up. These two metaphors of autosave or level up, these are concepts we're going to apply to your weight loss to help you maintain your progress. So you don't have to lose and find literally the same 20, 30, 40 pounds over and over and over again through life. So on my patient intake form, I ask the question, what programs have you tried in the past to help you lose weight? You know what the most common answer is? Everything. All right, so here goes. I put this together. Here's everything. Ready? High protein, low fat, low carb, high fat, no carb, paleo, carnivore, Manjaro, Olympic, South Beach, North Beach, keto, speedo, body for life, under the knife, gluteal mass, lipo your ass, whole 30, half 60, Newman Doom, Oprah watchers, Nutrigeni, isogenics, cryogenics. Holy crap, past the Prozac, right? Like if that describes you, please realize I am not making fun of you or myself or anybody. I'm just bringing to light the fact that, I've been standing in line. I can remember standing in line at the grocery store as a kid, reading the same magazine cover storylines on weight loss that were there then and still today. And it just tells me that something's not right with the story. Okay. But mostly I want you to know that the number one thing here is you are not alone. Okay. Number two, you are not broken. And most importantly, you are not a failure, because failure isn't personal. It's structural. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. All right, here are the facts. I want you to know this. The vast majority of people who go on a weight loss program actually lose weight. However, the vast majority of those same people also put most or all of that weight back on within a short period of time. But you know what? That's not the only place. Did you know that the vast majority of people who win the lottery within 3 years are back to where they were financially prior to their windfall? It's amazing, isn't it? I know some professional athletes. In fact, I know a guy who's a friend of mine in Arizona who has the oldest player agency in the NFL. And we were talking, and, a large percentage of professional athletes who make all this money, they are flat broke or declare bankruptcy within 5 years of retirement, a very high percentage. The list goes on. Let's talk about marriage. 40 to 45% in first marriages, 60 to 67% of second marriages. I think it's 73 to 74% of third marriages, and in divorce right here in the US. And I couldn't find anything beyond the third marriages. And I think that's likely because people are either flat broke and can't afford a marriage certificate, or they're so emotionally bankrupt, they just don't have the courage to walk down that aisle one more time. But there's a common denominator in this, and you probably think it's you. And if you think that, you would be wrong, because you are not the common denominator. The answer is not you. It's structure and identity. It's actually two things, structure and identity. So when I learned this, when I really learned that my failures, my perceived failures, weren't personal, they were structural, man, that changed everything. I mean, everything in my life changed, not just my weight, my business, my body, my relationships. And this dormant ability to turn thoughts into things became activated. So I want to share this stuff with you today. Okay, let's first talk about structure. A structure is defined as something with two or more parts held together by tension. And there's a funny thing about tension. Number one, it always seeks resolution. And number two, it always takes the path of least resistance, kind of like water. So there's three structures that we talk about. There's three different kinds of structures. The first one is stuck. So a stuck structure would be like a fence. Just think about a fence post, right? You dig them down like 3 feet into the ground. You pour concrete into the ground around the post, and you go to push on it. And what does it do? Nothing. It's stuck. Think about water in a pond. It's just stagnant. They're totally at equilibrium and they're not moving. So, maybe you think about someone who's stuck in their job or in their relationship, or maybe even with their health goals. They get up in the morning, they go through the motions of their day, to go to bed each night, but in effect, they're just paralyzed and they're just not really getting anywhere in life. The second structure is called an oscillating structure, and this is the one that most of us are stuck in most of the time. It's the classic yo-yo dieter. That's the structure that we're working on. You think of a fulcrum. Their set point is a fulcrum, and they keep moving back and forth, right? It's kind of like, me pushing my kid on the swing at the park, or think of a rocking chair, right? Super comfortable, goes forward, it goes back, goes forward, and it goes back. But again, you're not really getting anywhere. And that's more like a problem solving orientation instead of a creative orientation. So, give you an example. Like, we realized one day, holy cow, my clothes don't fit. So I'm either going to go buy larger clothes or I'm going to go on a diet. And what this does, it sets up a conflicting set of instructions. So you go on a diet. What do? You eat less. Well, this makes you more hungry. So then you want to eat more, but then you gain weight. So then you go back on a diet. You're going back and forth on this teeter-totter, constantly like swimming upstream in this raging torrent, right? You get like, a couple feet and then you're like tired, and then it just takes you back, and then you start again and you go back and then you start again. And it's just such a struggle. And the easier way to solve that is to just turn the river around. I'm going to show you how to do that. That last structure is called flow. So think of a boat on that river now, just being carried by the current, going exactly where it's being pointed. And this is the structure that we need to get into in order to break this yo-yo cycle of lose the weight, keep it off for a little bit, put it back on. We want to break that structure so we can lose it and keep it off for life. So structure is the first thing. The second thing we said was identity. So let me show you this little thing here. This is an acorn. That's an acorn from a live oak tree. And here in Northeast Florida, we got tons of these. These are massive trees. And this time of year, they just drop thousands of these acorns. I got a question for you. If we plant this acorn, is there any chance it's going to grow up to be a maple tree? Absolutely no chance. Yet all the information to grow a forest of oak trees is contained within this one single acorn. And the reason why that is because that's its identity. So look, you simply cannot create the health and the vitality, the body weight, the size, the shape that you would love from the same identity that created the one that you have right now. You just can't. And it doesn't really matter which weight loss program you use to lose weight, because without a change in identity, none of them is going to be permanent. Yet with the right identity, any of them or all of them can actually work. But I want you to consider that just losing weight and keeping it off does not guarantee health and vitality, because technically you can lose weight by trimming your fingernails, cutting your hair, or getting a lobotomy. That doesn't equal a life you love or health and vitality. You can't cheat nature. And if you think about it, there's a lot of long-term effects of weight loss drugs that is going to prove that you can't cheat nature. And it's just like the fen-phen from the 80s. So I want you to understand that being the identity of someone who is at their ideal body weight is then someone who emulates health and vitality, and it's someone who makes healthy choices and whose behaviors will just flow naturally. What you have in your life right now, think about it. Your living conditions, your relationships, bank account, your body size, the shape, everything you have right now is exactly as you have created it to be. You create it through your beliefs and your identity. It's based on your environment, your behavior, skills, beliefs, emotions, basically, your identity. And this can be changed. In fact, we need to change it. We need to be it in order to see it. So in order to understand how that works, we need to talk about consciousness. Now look, there's 3 levels of consciousness. Self-conscious, that's the realm of thoughts. Self-conscious, it's the realm of thoughts. It chooses. and it has desires. It wants to have a better life. All right. The self-conscious comes on board around age 4. Then there's the unconscious. Dr. Brian called it the subconscious. Same thing. Unconscious, subconscious. It's the realm of feelings. Okay. And it only has one thing that it cares about. It doesn't care about how fun it would be to jump out of an airplane. It doesn't care how amazing it would feel to drive a Ferrari. It doesn't care about anything at all except keeping you alive. Survival. That's all it cares about. And it comes on board, somewhere in the beginning of the 3rd trimester, maybe a little bit at the end of the 6th month in utero. So in utero, when we're a fetus, is when the unconscious memory kind of comes in, or the state of consciousness. Now, the last one is called the superconscious. So the superconscious is infinite. It's always been, it's always will be, and it's just a field. And it's a field of creativity, and it doesn't care what you create. It doesn't care at all what you want for your life. If you want to have a great job or a crummy job, if you have a loving relationship or a crummy relationship, it doesn't care. It'll create whatever the unconscious tells it. The unconscious creates the blueprint, and it sends the instructions up to the superconscious, and it's always listening, and it's always creating in alignment with your identity and the blueprint that you create from that identity. That set point that you have right now is controlled by your unconscious. Remember, it only cares about survival, and survival trumps desires. So if you think about the unconscious, it's what allows or denies creation. The self-conscious chooses or desires. The superconscious creates, but it's the unconscious that allows or denies the creativity of that process. So it feels like, and if you think about your desire to lose weight, it feels like the unconscious is fighting us. Like it feels like it's fighting against us all the time. And it really feels like more fat in our frame is actually better. And why is that? And the reason is that your body is actually doing the best it possibly can with all of our beliefs from the past projected onto us now. And it's preparing for a famine to keep us in survival. It's preparing for a famine that's never coming. It's actually doing its job to protect you, and it's doing a good job. But unfortunately, it's been programmed by society, by the food industry, by commercials, and probably even our upbringing. In fact, for sure, our upbringing. So I want to do a little exercise to show you how your unconscious stops you by its beliefs. So I want you to stand up. And I'm not going to stand up because then I'll go out of the camera. But the idea here is I want you to kind of stand like this, and you hold your arm at a 90 degree. So we're basically kind of like becoming a sundial. And what I want you to do is kind of like go up and out of your body and look down on you with your arm out like this. And I want you to just close your eyes. And I want you to observe how this happens. Okay. All I want you to do is just keep your feet planted and turn as far as you can go, and just look down and notice where on the clock that stopped. Like, where did it stop? Like, if I'm in my chair right now, but and it spins, but if I'm standing, I can go so far. Maybe I can go to like 5:30 on the clock. Okay. So take a minute and just see how far you can go and make a note of that. And now come on back. And I want you to just do this little exercise with me. This isn't like hypnosis or anything crazy like that. Okay. I just want you to close your eyes, and I want you to like stay above your body, seeing your body with your arm out, and imagine you can just put your hand down on your head and twist you 10% further. If you stopped at like, say, 5 o'clock, see if you can twist it in your mind to 6. So you're going to 6, or maybe you can go 20%. Maybe you can go to 7. Maybe you can just turn to 8. Imagine you can turn that dial all the way around to 12, and just imagine it and feel it. Just see it actually spin all the way around. And now open your eyes, stand back up, and do it again and see how much further you can go. It's pretty incredible that you can go further. In fact, most people, when I've done this exercise, everybody is able to go further. And it's no trick. It's just that you see your unconscious, it stopped you the first time, but it's trainable, and it's trainable through visualization. So you had the potential to go further the first time, but your unconscious stopped you. So I want you to ask this question: where is your unconscious stopping you in your life? With your weight loss? Yeah, sure, maybe. But in your health and vitality in general, your relationships, your work, your finances, your income, where is your unconscious stopping you in life? What this shows, this little exercise, is the limitation of your beliefs and your definitions and your identity, and that they can be recoded by reprogramming your unconscious. And you have to learn to program your mind for success in the right way, or we'll keep going back in that oscillating structure back to our set point. And that's where the superconscious recode comes in. This is what is at the core of our program. And that's why it's called the weight loss recode. And it's literally why this is the last weight loss advice you'll ever need. So what are we recoding? Well, the short answer is your identity, and we do it through structure. But in order to do that, first I need to teach you how to get out of your problem-solving orientation, AKA my clothes don't fit, so I should go on a diet. Out of that problem-solving orientation and into a creative orientation. And I'll take you through those 5 steps of the superconscious creation. It's called the superconscious creator code. It's 5 steps. We do it every single week on our program. And well, I think let's just do it right now. I'll show you what those 5 steps are, because people generally want to know what they are. So here it is. Step 1, decide, and this is hard for most people, but you have to decide what you would love to create for your health and your vitality in this case, or in general, what do you want? Figure out what you want. That's the first step. What is it? Once you have that defined, and I want you to think of it as like a universal buffet line, like you can pick anything you want. You can have anything you want from the table, but you can't have it all. But you can pick anything you want. So you have to decide what it is that you want. And then we ask you the question, well, what will having that do for you? And then tangibly, how will you know when you have it? And then we take you into visualizing it and feeling it and emotionally feeling it. So you visualize it with feeling and you connect with that end result and you choose it. Step 2, that's your desired end result. Step 2 is, well, where are you now in relationship to that? Step 3 is, what is your emotional experience of being in that structure? 4th is, we see that, so that's the structure, that's the creative structure, and there's resistance to taking the next obvious action step on the path to getting to that end result. So step 4 is, we find out where is your resistance, what is in the way, and that's the superconscious recode. We literally treat the resistance to you taking the necessary next obvious action step that will take you from where you are to where you're wanting to be. And that path over time becomes the path of least resistance. So this all has the same formula. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be? Where are you now? What's in the way? Recode it. And what's the next action step? So each action step you take becomes your next new current situation or reality. And you use this formula for not only your weight loss, but everything in your life. Anything that you want to create. If you want to create a business, it's the same deal. What do you want to create? What's that business look like? What will having that do for you? How will you know when you have it? How does it feel emotionally? Connect with that. Where are you now? What's in the way? Recode the resistance. What's the next action step? Take it. Moves you to the next current reality. So taking that next obvious action step is huge, because information without action is useless. Like that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee. That's it. So The superconscious recode method, which is what we do constantly on this program, literally day and night, in short, rewires your unconscious to become more comfortable with its wound. It becomes more comfortable with being a lower body weight, a smaller size or a different shape. See, the brain doesn't get the message that it's actually safe to be able to be a smaller size, a lower body weight, or a different shape. So you got to understand, losing weight isn't the problem. Keeping it off is the problem. And getting into a creative structure, recoding the resistance, and taking the next obvious action step is the solution that you've been seeking. All right, so let's downshift a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about metabolism and physiology here. So if you really want to lose weight, I'm going to assume that what you really mean you want is to burn unwanted fat and keep it off, right? That's literally what we're talking about. Because again, amputate an arm, you're going to lose weight. That doesn't make sense. So in order to do that, you have to understand a few more things. Okay, so first you have to burn abnormal fat, and not your structural fat, and definitely not your muscle. So I just want to take a minute and talk about the three types of fat. And this is as a noun, not as an adjective, all right? So there's structural, abnormal, and visceral fat. Structural fat, and this is very brief and very cursory, but structural fat, we need it. You absolutely have to have it. It is around the organs for padding. It's on the phospholipid layer of your cells, and it lines every single nerve in your body. They're called Schwann cells, and that's made of fat. If you don't have that fat, the nerve impulses slow down, and that's a problem. That creates memory loss and dementia and a whole bunch of other problems. Okay, so structural fat, we have it. We don't want to get rid of it. Now, abnormal fat is that subcutaneous fats, inflamed adipose tissues. People can have abnormal fat in their organs, and they can actually be a normal body weight. So they're like thin on the outside, but kind of fat on the inside. That stuff we don't want. Okay. And then the last one is visceral fat. The visceral fat is, well, that's the bad boy, because that leads, the higher your visceral fat, the greater the probability of you getting things like diabetes and cancer and stroke and heart disease and all those major killers. So the visceral fat is the big one. That's the one you really want to target. Okay. And muscle, you do not ever want to target. You never want to lose muscle. In fact, health and vitality has a direct relationship to the amount of lean muscle that you have on your frame. Now, I just want to take a second and talk about weight loss drugs, these injections. They work to help you lose weight. There's no question about it. There's absolutely no question about it. There's tons of evidence that people that take these things, they will lose weight. But the problem is, and they don't tell you this, is that the weight that you're losing is your structural fat and your muscle. And that's a problem. Okay. Your visceral fat stays in place. The abnormal fat stays in place, and your lean muscle literally gets digested to keep you alive. This is not very smart. Okay. It's also very expensive, and it's unsustainable in the long term. So there's some recent publications that are showing people are dropping these meds due to the loss of muscle, which you can measure on an $85 scale. You can see it in your bathroom every month. So they're dropping it because the loss of muscle, the expense, monthly expense, and the side effects. And there's a host of them. And we don't even know the long-term effects, not side effects, the long-term effects or consequences of taking these meds. And then there's the massive weight gain that follows you going off of those meds. Very well documented. In fact, there was a recent meta-analysis. Give me 1 second. I read this meta-analysis looks at like a whole bunch of studies, and it puts them all together, and then it kind of summarizes them. It's called a meta-analysis. It was published in The Lancet. The Lancet is a very reputable medical journal. And they concluded, after looking at all of these studies, that the rebound weight gain is due to stopping the meds and not because of a lifestyle regression. What does that mean? That means that these drugs are designed to make lifetime customers without knowing the long-term consequences of taking them. That's pretty scary, in my opinion. So wisdom says, look, and I said it before, you cannot cheat nature. Everyone who's tried pretty much is lost. However, you can learn to work with it. So there are, in fact, natural approaches like homeopathic formulations that are just as effective, less expensive, have no side effects. And if it's formulated properly, they can actually tell your brain to just target your abnormal and your visceral fat and spare your muscle and your structural fat. It can tell your body to eat less and keep you out of starvation mode. They can also eliminate your cravings and reduce your appetite. Second, you need to reverse insulin resistance. So look, if you have abdominal fat, you have a degree of insulin resistance in your body. And insulin resistance leads to diabetes. Once you get diabetes, yes, it's reversible with the right coaching. But most people, once they're diabetic, they get everything else. And that's what we learned in school. You know, once you're diabetic, you're going to get everything else. So here's 5 ways to start reversing insulin resistance. Super, super easy. Number 1, eat less and eat slower. You know, we wolf our food. I grew up on a farm, right? So we wolfed our food down, man, and back to work. And the faster you eat, the faster the insulin spikes. When insulin spikes, it tells the body to store fat. So we want to eat slower and eat less. Number 2, eat less often. You know, slow it down and don't eat as much or as often. So 2 meals a day instead of grazing all day is really going to help keep your insulin from spiking or staying elevated. Number 3 is eat less carbohydrates, especially the simple carbs, the sweet stuff, right? And the starchy stuff. Little known, maybe, take apple cider vinegar before meals. Apple cider vinegar doesn't actually, so you know, doesn't actually help you burn fat directly. Indirectly, yes, but not directly. What it actually is a metabolic signal. And it signals the slowing of the food through the system. So if you slow the food through the system, then it slows or tempers that insulin spike. So apple cider vinegar before meals, maybe 10 minutes before meals is really, really good. And then number 5 is take an herbal supplement. Here's one. We love this one. It's called the Chaos Tamer. And it's a blend that will do a number of things. It will lower your insulin spikes. It reduces inflammation and sugar cravings. These herbs are incredible. They naturally decrease your appetite and stimulate the natural release of GLP-1, right? The GLP-1, we think of GLP-1 as the injection. Well, that's just mimicking the natural release of GLP-1, which kind of slows that motility through the system and reduces your appetite. That's what GLP-1 actually does naturally. And these herbs that you can take without any side effects to actually help your body do that, to release that. But most importantly, what this stuff does is it heals your liver and your pancreas. And so the connection between your liver and your pancreas is what controls your blood sugar metabolism. So you're actually healing and reversing insulin resistance when we're healing the pancreas and the liver with these herbs. All right, third, you need to learn how to reset your body's metabolism. So I have found through years of doing this, and I've created that a 3-week on, 3-week off rhythm that aligns with the natural rhythms of your body is the best way to do it. So if you've done this properly, you are in effect auto saving your progress. You're incrementally leveling up, just like in the video game.